everyone. Welcome to Wicky's Cricket Podcast. This is episode 10. We're going to do a mini pod, mainly covering India, Pakistan, and a couple of other topics around the Cricket World Cup. Welcome again to Shane. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a lot of rugby league in between. It's been the end of that season, the frantic end to that season, but we're officially into the cricket season now. World Cup started, World Cup's underway. We've already had some incredible World Cup performances. We're only a few days into the tournament. I think we're in like a week into the tournament now. So we're recording this on the Thursday. And I think a week ago is when we began the tournament with New Zealand, England. And we're recording this just a few hours before Australia and South Africa are supposed to play each other in Lucknow. Australia having lost their first game against India. And in a couple of days from now is the big one. It's India, Pakistan at Ahmedabad. That's basically why we decided to sit down and record a pod today. We thought the best way to get back in the groove was like with a little mini pod on India, Pakistan on the weekend.
Yep. A couple of, as always, I'm going to go off topic really quickly to start off. But I will say that even though we've done a bunch of rugby league work in the last couple of months, we've actually had some huge wins on the cricket end. And I think we'll start to reap a lot of the rewards for the work we have been doing over the next few months. So with the World Cup, obviously the Men's World Cup on, Women's big BBL on, and then the Men's BBL, we have a ton of plans. So if you Google Wiki Linktree, you'll see our Discord community and all our social media that you can obviously follow to keep up to speed on a lot of our work. And I'll very quickly say, in terms of the World Cup, we've got one of our team members, our newest marketing hire, Rishil. He's actually going to be at the game for India Pakistan. So he's promised me at least one Instagram story. So we'll see how we go if he remembers to do that. And this is super random, but I feel like we've kept a nice bit of momentum with this pod of trying to stick to structure and then going completely off topic. So I realized as I was talking to my family the other day, in 2015, obviously the World Cup was in Australia. I was there for a few of the games. 2019, weird coincidence. 2 days after the World Cup final, I was flying to. I was actually in London, or maybe a day and a half after the World Cup final. I was in London. This World Cup, I think again, exactly a day and a half later, I'll be in India. So I don't know if that's an omen. I don't know if that means India's going to win it for sure. But I'm just putting that out there. That the chances are, or putting all analytics aside, it's it's looking good. Fingers crossed. But yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. Should we get straight into it, Shane?
Yeah, please, yes. So India, Pakistan, that's like let's just start with. Actually, you know what? Before we like really dive into that, let's just like 2 minutes on Australia, South Africa. I promise, like no more than that. So Australia, South Africa is really important from sort of the perspective of the World Cup, obviously, because well, these are two teams that are going to be aiming for semi-final spots, right? The top, the top four spots, and so on. But I also thought it's a really significant game because this is the first World Cup game that's going to take place in Lucknow, which is a ground that's hosted a lot of IPL cricket, but not a lot of one-day cricket recently. Um, unless you count women's one days, which it did host a couple of years ago when the India women got back to action after like a long post T20 World Cup, post 86,000 at the MCG. So the year after that, they sort of resumed cricket in Lucknow. Anyway, uh, that was a bit of a tangent. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens today because Lucknow sort of got this reputation as like a slow, really spin-friendly surface. It's going to be really important for Australia, particularly because they obviously play South Africa there today, and they're also playing Sri Lanka there in a few days' time. I think start of next week. So, and this is obviously also the venue that hosts India England later in the tournament, which could kind of be like the defining top of the table clash. Who gets first versus who gets second? It could be as important as that. I'm not discounting New Zealand, by the way. They're also in the mix. But yeah, I think it's going to be really important it's going to be a really significant game today to watch out from that point of view, at least.
Yep. Can I just
I think both
ask
for the intrinsic
one?
value of what's going to happen today, but also because of what's going to happen later in the tournament at Lucknow and the number of important games that are taking place there.
Yep. I'm going to ask as someone who lives in Australia and doesn't watch as much cricket, especially IPL cricket, as I would like to. Lucknow, the general reputation of the IPL, slow and low, is that right? Or slow and low
Yeah.
scoring?
Um, Good question. I'm not sure about low scoring so much. I'd have to look at the scores, which I've been just a bit out of touch with recently. But yes, slow, spin friendly. Um, it's possible to sort of, it's possible we might see three spinners there when India play England. That's the kind of surface I think it is. Kind of like how we saw in Chennai against
Mm.
Australia.
So when you're looking at Australia, South Africa, like I'll just give you my sort of uh,
Hmm.
without context, just going straight into the teams. I was looking at the South African team pre-tournament, and from what I saw in the previews and a little bit of what I've seen with them in like the actual team, it seems like they're pretty like they've got most bases covered. And looking at Australia's team objectively, it looked like Smith and Marnus 3 and 4, Mitch Marsh opening the batting, Carey and Green in that sort of 5, 6, 7 role. Zampa sort of a little bit up and down, and then you've got Cummins who has to play because he's the captain, but does he have a real role in that bowling attack? There seem to be a lot of question marks, but then you know that people were mocking Australia before the T20 World Cup in 2021, and look what happened there. So, is there more to it, or are those points pretty much spot on?
Those are pretty much spot on, yeah. And I think especially if the Lucknow surface later today plays how we've seen it play in the IPL, I think Keshav Maharaj is going to be really important for South Africa. Um, like this is his time to shine. I think in fact he's played at Lucknow before. I think he played a one day for South Africa last year, sometime last year, I think, and he did really well. I think he bowled 8 overs, one for 23. Um, just like he was very much in his element, and he's I think going to be definitely going to be the one to watch. That's now possibly two surfaces, like two really spin friendly surfaces that Australia have run into at the start of the tournament, and immediately the lack of a second spinner has kind of been it's kind of been revealed and it's really hurting them. I think Maxwell had to bowl quite a bit in Chennai, but I'm sure they'd also like the option of another frontline spinner to go with Zampa, which
Yep.
we'll see how they will. I guess we'll find out a little bit later today how they attempt to solve that problem.
I can't see it working out well. I'll ask you a question, right? So, if you had to frame a theoretical market, seeing what you know of the teams and what you know of Lucknow generally, who would you say should be pre-game favorites in this game?
Hmm. South Africa possibly. Um. Yep.
South
I think
Africa
they do have
just?
the um. Ooh, tough to say. I don't know how. Like, I don't know what Australia will turn up. That's why.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, yeah. I'd say South Africa just. I'd say South Africa just.
Cool.
Yep.
It
Nail it
kind
on
of
the
just
head.
reminds me of like a lot of cricket game, a lot of sporting events where, like, so for example, I just out of interest looked at the sports betting odds for this game to see who was the favorite, and I assumed Australia because that's how people think, oh, it's Australia in a World Cup. But knowing what we know about the teams, and if you're saying it's going to be a slower pitch, and South Africa have two quality spinners, and Australia's got Zampa and Maxwell, for example, I don't know. It just seemed like South Africa are legitimately a better team on paper for this game. So yeah, anyways, I just thought it'd be interesting to see what you said with no context. But yeah, anyways,
Oh,
Australia are slight favourites in the betting
oh,
markets,
okay.
and I think it should be much closer to 50-50. So we'll see how it pans
Hmm.
out.
I
Cool.
mean, let's say. I mean, I was a bit hesitant about saying South Africa favorites, at least partly because of exactly what you just mentioned. Australia in the World Cup, don't count them out. But also with like I think the surface might I guess I don't know about the surface. Like we haven't seen it in an actual World Cup game yet. So I guess that'll also immediately make things really clear whether pricing Australia as slight favorites was reflective of like actual match conditions or not.
Yeah, usually with these things, it's just a lack of attention to detail. They just it's the safer way for them to sort of
Yeah.
frame the markets early. But anyways, we'll see how it plays out.
Hmm.
Let us get on to India versus Pakistan. So
Yes.
I'll start this one off with it's funny. Like I was actually reading Sanjay Manjrekar's autobiography recently. I think in that or somewhere I heard that Indian players actually used to think that look, whatever happens this World Cup, as long as we win the Pakistan game, it's okay. I always thought it was something in the media, but apparently, like, it was actually thought of within the team. That might have been in the 90s,
Hmm.
and obviously we've come a long way since then in Indian cricket. But um, everyone that I speak to, whether it's you or sort of previews and stuff, or everyone's like, "Oh, Pakistan's not going so well. India should win this one. India's in better form." But honestly, like, yeah, obviously it's clear that I'm an Indian cricket fan, but I think the only thing that really worries me is if Shubman Gill was playing, I'd say, you know what, fine. Even though I'm nervous, I'm confident with that
Yeah.
sort of Rohit Gill, Kohli top three, middle order showing
Hmm.
some sort of form recently, and then Pandya
Hmm.
and Jadeja. But with Gill potentially not playing and like a fresh, or like Shahid Afridi with a new ball, I still shit myself at the thought of of that sort of first 5 6 overs, especially with bloody Australia getting 3 wickets for no runs off the bat the other day. But yeah, anyways, we'll go with a blank canvas. How do you see this one?
Um, I honestly think even without Gill, India's batting has been looking pretty good this tournament so far. KL Rahul got a 97 against Australia. Came in a tough
Class.
situation, made some important runs. That middle order spot really suits him. He bats really well in the middle order. In one day cricket, he's um, like I think when the sort of news of Gill's illness broke and it was clear that he wasn't going to be able to start the tournament and was potentially going to miss like a few games. There was obviously like India did have this choice in front of them that, oh, we can, what should we do? Should we move KL Rahul up to open or should we play Kishan at the top? Or should it be the other way around? Should it be Kishan playing in the middle and KL Rahul at the top? KL Rahul obviously has opened multiple times for India in many formats. But I think that was like it might sound obvious, but it is a very good thing that India kept KL in the middle. That's where he bats best. And in order to cover a hole at the top of the order, they didn't move KL out of his sort of like his favored middle order spot, and that really paid off. I think they essentially sort of there's no point I think compromising a strength in order to like make up for a weakness at the top or an absence at the top. And I think India are already seeing the rewards of that, which is wonderful. Kohli's been in great form. Past couple of games, he's got runs.
Ooh,
He's finished not out against Afghanistan. Rohit was just on yesterday against Afghanistan. He was just he was just on, and he was just putting away everything that was even slightly loose. He broke a
mhm.
whole bunch of records, got his 100, um, got five in the last World Cup. He's already got one in this World Cup.
I've got a
Um,
question with that, right? So, quick question, two quick questions. If you know the answer, that's great. If not, no worries at all. Couple of things came to mind. You keep seeing the stat of Rohit Sharma, 700s in 19 World Cup innings. He's got more than anyone else in roughly half the amount of innings. It is incredible, right? Do you remember in the 2019 World Cup, were there a couple of hundreds against like an Afghanistan or a Bangladesh, or I'm trying to remember who the hundreds were against. Um,
it was Bangladesh, South
yeah,
Africa, England, I think.
Pakistan.
Uh, it, uh, I
Was
can't
it someone
remember them.
else?
Those were
Maybe now I've
certainly
got
three of the
the
five.
right,
I think
right.
it
Okay, okay.
was, yeah, I think it was Bangladesh, South Africa, and England for sure.
Cool. Okay, sure. Okay, so that was one thing I was thinking. So that's fine, like all good. And the other thing that I was thinking of, I have now forgotten, so we can move on. The other thing I think we were discussing very briefly before this was Shami versus Siraj, and a couple of my friends were mentioning this as well. Like, I do think largely, like he's had really good ODI stats for the last few months, I believe, because he made it to number one, and I think he's down to number two or whatever. I don't think India would change their decision based off, one or two performances in this World Cup so far. I actually thought yesterday was a great opportunity for them to play Shami instead of a Thakur, but they obviously
Yeah.
decided to go with Thakur, which makes me kind of think like Shami is only really going to get a game maybe when they play, who is it, Netherlands or whatever later in the tournament. It just seems weird to play Siraj 2 games in a row, play Thakur over Shami, and then later give Shami a game over Siraj. It seems weird to do that all within a week. But yeah, how do you see that one?
Um, I honestly don't know. Honestly, Siraj has become a really good white ball bowler. Uh, wasn't that good yesterday against Afghanistan. I think India do have a choice again now, as with the Shubman Gill, KL Rahul, Ishan Kishan thing. Should we? should we stick with this guy? Should we show the faith for a big game when uh like his sort of general white ball form over the last sort of couple of years or so has really warranted it. Siraj, I mean, just sort of holding on to his place in the team. But yesterday wasn't a good day at all. Bumrah's looking good though, and you know that the sort of the rest of the attack. It's also clear that India is sort of willing to change up things, well, based on conditions as much as anything else. We saw that with Australia; they went for the extra spinner, which I'll also get to in a second. But um, I honestly like. I honestly find it difficult to tell at this point. I'm not sure whether Siraj or Shami will get the nod for Saturday. Um,
If you had to pick, who would you go?
Sorry.
If you had to pick, who would you go?
Ooh, I don't know. I really don't know. I also I don't know. I guess I'm also wondering if that's not the that's not the decision to make. I wonder if there's any like if there's place to fit Ashwin into this team somehow
Hmm.
for that game. Because possibly going all in with three spinners at Ahmedabad. Um, so we've already had one World Cup game at Ahmedabad. That was the first game of the tournament where we had New Zealand play England. Um, Mitchell Santner had a fantastic game in that opener, that tournament opener. Even Glenn Phillips got a couple of wickets bowling his
Hmm.
off spin. Um, Maybe like I know Shami versus Siraj and sort of Shami versus Shardul was kind of the debate for Afghanistan. Shami versus Siraj might be the debate for Saturday, but I wonder if it's not just Shami versus Siraj. I wonder if it's Shami versus Siraj versus Ashwin, and potentially playing three spinners and going all in and trying to um, spin choke Pakistan in the first innings
Hmm.
if they choose to bowl first.
It's
Is
not the
you
worst. It's not the worst. I don't know. Like I found it a bit odd that Thakur played yesterday. Like I understand that he offers another pace bowling option, but I just really like Ravi Ashwin in, well, obviously Test cricket, but one day cricket, just because of his option of being able to bat as well. Um,
Mhm.
and it's probably my bias here, but I just don't really know what Thakur offers you, or like if he offers you enough, unless the ball's hooping, which it makes sense. Like in overseas conditions, if the ball's hooping, Thakur is, yeah, of course, he's a pace bowler, right? I just think in Indian conditions, if you think the pitch is, I just don't see a scenario where Thakur can offer you significantly more than Ashwin can. And with Ashwin, you get his experience, his sort of like respect around the group, all that kind of, I don't know. I guess I'm big on these uh, intangibles
are you implying that
of
Shardul
just
Thakur has no respect around the group?
less respect around the group is a nicer way to put it. But no, and I don't know, like even with Siraj and Shami. So I know I asked you the question, but I think it seems clear. Like for me, if they're going to pick Siraj in Game One of the World Cup over Shami, then I don't see any reason to then change that after just a game with Afghanistan. After that, like I think just go for continuity, give him the 3 games in a row for whatever reason. If he noticeably fails against Pakistan, then there's a real there's a real topic and a real question there, right? And then I think it's like fair
Hmm.
enough if you give maybe Shabi 2 games after that, maybe against one of the lesser ranked teams, and then maybe another game, and maybe Siraj and Shami play
Hmm.
together, whatever it is. But I think you're lucky enough to have 9 games here, so
Hmm.
no reason to panic early. Give Siraj another game, maybe give him two
Okay.
more, and if he gives you something noticeable, like if he noticeably is stuffing up, that's when you bring Shami in, you give him
Hmm.
2 or 3 games, and then you make a decision on your sort of outfit that you want to sell it. Also,
Hmm.
Pandya bowled really
Right.
well, which is I think another important point.
Hmm.
If you do want to go to three
Hmm.
spinners, you know that you could get as many overs
Yeah.
as you need really out of Hardik Pandya.
Yeah. Hardik's really important for the balance of this team. That's exactly right. I think him and Jadeja playing together is so important for lengthening the batting and enlarging the sort of like expanding the bowling options available. But just the one sort of thing that I'd sort of put against the Siraj thing is like if you don't trust Siraj, why wait for him to fail against Pakistan before dropping him?
Fair
Um,
enough.
if you do trust him to come good, fine, fair enough. He can play. That's totally cool. That's legit. He's done well, obviously, and I think it pays to keep the faith with him, um, despite one bad game. Um, but yeah, just like why not just drop him ahead of time, replace him with somebody who you think is more reliable, and then just go in, win the Pakistan game. If you want to play around with it, play around with the combinations afterwards. Fine, fair enough, go ahead. But yeah, that
No,
was the only thought that I had in response to that.
that'll be really interesting. I think if we're having so many well, if we're not confident with which way to go, it's going to be really interesting to see how they go. I do, well, at least hope that they go in with some consistency. You know, I'm assuming Gill's
Hmm.
not going to be able to play. I really hope he is, but if he isn't, obviously Kishan at the top. I am extremely nervous of seeing Kishan open the batting for India in a 50 over World Cup versus Pakistan. But fingers crossed that works out all right.
Hmm.
And I just hope that they go with consistency because
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. Like you've made a decision based on a body of work, and I hope they back themselves in. But and yes, we'll see how that goes.
Hmm.
Look, let's do like a
Um,
real sort of short, sharp, a couple of things, predictions on this India Pakistan game. Um,
yep.
I'd like to say like if you want to just mention maybe one point about the Pakistani team. Again, I can say I've watched
Hmm.
very little of Pakistan over the last few months. Even with their warm up games and stuff, I know very little.
Yep.
If I know very little, I'm assuming a lot of Aussie or cricket fans in Australia know very little. But yeah,
Hmm.
let us know who wins and why India Pakistan, and give us a little tidbit on Pakistan and what to expect.
Yep. Yep. Sure. So Pakistan are actually 2-0 in this World Cup, much like India after yesterday, and much like New Zealand are already. So heading into the weekend, we're going to have three, possibly four teams on two wins, depending on how the Australia South Africa game goes in a few hours from now. And Pakistan just are like Pakistan will have a lot of confidence because they're coming in hot off a 350-run chase against Sri Lanka. It all looked lost after the first innings, but we had hundreds from Abdullah Shafique and from Mohammad Rizwan, which obviously like a very popular player. Generally, they both made hundreds. And the little tidbit I have is basically it is related to Abdullah Shafique. Fakhar Zaman had started this tournament. Um, Not looking too good. They Even though they beat Netherlands, they made the proactive move of dropping him ahead of the Sri Lanka game, replacing with Abdullah Shafiq. Now that's a move that's paid off right away because he made 100 at more than a run ball, whatever it was. So that's already a move that's paid off. He's already got settled into the team ahead of the India game, and that's just so important. I think to have just that assuredness of runs at the top. Because if you remember the game that you were at last year in the T20 World Cup, the India Pakistan game, where Arshdeep Singh got a bit of movement up front. They had lost a few wickets at the top, and I think it was Shan Masood and somebody else who had to like repair the damage after losing a
Yep.
few wickets early on. And just the fact that they were playing catch up after the first couple of overs in that game just wasn't great. And I know that it literally came down to the last over. It came down to what have you done, Nawaz, and it came down to all of that. But uh, I think if Australia, if Pakistan can start that game strongly, which they now possibly can, now that one of their openers has got like a big 100 under his belt, they've got runs through the middle with Rizwan. Babar Azam's not really turned up yet, and they haven't needed him to.
Mm,
And that's kind of a good sign that they're getting runs from other places in this team as well. And if they actually make an early start to that India game, and they're the ones sort of on top and controlling the momentum in the early stages, I think they could actually put India under a bit of pressure. It'll be 100,000 people in that crowd watching that game.
mm.
It's going to be completely silent if the openers get going, if the Pakistan openers get going. And I think if they have the momentum behind them, they could actually they could get a chance of getting a result there. I think India should be favorites on merit because of the strength of the batting and how well the bowling is done, how good Bumrah's looking. By the way, like that's
Yes.
another thing that's really important to mention. I think he stays fit throughout this tournament. I think India should at least make the final.
Yep.
Uh,
I think yeah, Boomer has been absolutely excellent. Like I think so many times when it's a World Cup, you kind of get sucked into like the emotion or like the stage, right? But I think early on in this World Cup, knowing that there's 9 games for every team, it's been nice to like just
Yeah.
kind of watch the cricket and kind of concentrate on what's going on. And yeah, Boomer's wrist position and the way he's been bowling has just been absolutely incredible. So really, really
Mhm.
excited to see. And the guy's missed out on
Um,
obviously a
yeah.
few games due to injury as well. Sorry. Yep.
Yep. Just one last thing about the Indian pacers. I think that's Bumrah's, I think, a relevant factor when considering who to actually pick in terms of Siraj or Shami or Shardul or Ashwin or whoever, is that maybe one of the other seamers that you pick can be an enabler to ensure that you don't use up too many of Bumrah's overs up front.
Mm,
You will need him to bowl at the end. And for whatever reason, if your spinners aren't like if your spinners just haven't found their rhythm, you don't want them bowling too many in the last sort of 10 overs or so. In which case, you'll be glad that you have like 5 or 6 overs from Bumrah left to just bowl straight through at the
mm.
end, as compared to like just 2 or 3 and having to rely on either a potentially unreliable seamer or a spinner who's not done well that day.
Yep. I'll give my 2 cents on the India-Pakistan game. I think what makes me nervous is Pakistan batting first, racking up a decent to big total. And if Ishan Kishan is playing and not Shubman Gill, it just makes me nervous. If we, lose if Kishan gets out, for example, and then one of Rohit and Virat get out early and you're chasing like a whatever, like 330, 350, whatever the score is, if there's a couple of early wickets and you're chasing a 300 plus score, that's when things get really difficult for India, I think, especially knowing that we don't know who's going to be batting at 8, but that batting order can look great, but you also know that a couple of early wickets, and it's like the batsmen are then, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but I remember pre-World Cup, the big thing for Rohit Sharma in white ball cricket was let's play fearlessly and all that kind of stuff. That goes out the window if you're chasing 340 against Pakistan, and if Ishan Kishan is opening the batting, he gets out, Rohit Sharma gets out, and then it's sort of Virat Kohli say there again to kind of save the day.
Mm.
That goes out the window, and it's a completely different cricket game. So I hope that India can bat first, rack up a nice sort of 340, 350 total, and I think they can kind of
Mm.
control the game with the ball. Like it's
Yeah.
weird saying that, but I think actually India's got a better chance with their spinners, especially. It's kind of like controlling the game, and Pakistan hopefully losing a few wickets in the middle, and then India can sort of cruise to victory. But what
Mm.
does worry me is like a big Pakistan total. And with their batting, like I think it definitely is
Yeah.
possible. But yeah,
Right.
let's hope that it goes the other way around.
Mm. Yeah, no, because I was just thinking that if you end up in a repeat situation of the Australia game, which is you're like India 2 for 3 chasing 320 instead of 200, then I think it might be like much harder to pull off a run chase
Yeah,
from there, no matter how well Kohli's batting.
yeah, no, 100%. And I think like yeah, it's really true. Like you can't be losing 3 wickets in any scenario. But I think like the fact that they did get Australia out for 200, it was the pitch,
Yep.
it was Australia's inability to play spin. The pitch was just doing so much during the day as well, right? So um, I don't know. Like I just don't see this being an easy game for India. I think it'll be a great test for India to really sort of
Yep.
see where they're at, right? Because they've played Afghanistan and Australia in conditions that didn't suit them. So I think we'll know if India is sort of up to winning a World Cup at home and what they really look like with their feetless batting and everything against that sort of Shane Afridi opening with the new ball. But anyways, look, we
Yep.
promised to do a mini pod today. I think it ended up being half an hour, but next week onwards, we're going to have a little bit more little bit less me going off topic, a little bit more actual analysis, and sort of deep diving into the games, and obviously going into the WBBL starts this time next week. So whether we do it on the same pod or we split it up, we will have a little bit of WBBL stuff, a little bit of World Cup stuff, a lot more to go into from next week onwards, which will be great fun. But yeah, enjoy the games for the next few days, especially the India Pakistan blockbuster, and we'll catch you next week.